But we are loading on in. It's a best of 7. SuperNova versus JimRising, spawning down the bottom left-hand side of the map. SuperNova playing for Team Root, and his opponent up in the top right-hand side of the map. It is JimRising playing for Predator Esport. Hope you guys are all looking forward to this match. I certainly am. Big thanks to Discode, by the way, for sponsoring this best of 7. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be having this match. And so big thanks to him for sponsoring that. But yeah, so we'll see what the builds are. I mean, SuperNova, he likes to play mech, and Thors have been changed a little bit. The Cyclone's been changed a little bit. So mech will be a little bit different. So we'll see how he's going to open up. But he can also play bio. And then there's JimRising, who's a very solid Zerg player. I know he was a little bit concerned about how Hydras got nerfed on the balanced test mod. I think every Zerg player is. So we'll just have to see how Jim's gonna do with the new Hydras. Doritos. Spam this Dorito to help Jim Cito. Alright. Alrighty, so the build. Standard stuff coming out about these guys. I mean, we just had one Terran versus Zerg best of 7. That's also a good point. The burrow changes. Units will now burrow much, much more quickly than they used to do. Alright, Reaper on the way for SuperNova. CC on the way. Now, he doesn't know if Jim is going for an early pool or anything like that, so he is going to be keeping this Reaper back at home. It's just going to be rallied right towards that natural base. So, showing a lot of respect for Jim, but SCV now coming in for SuperNova. We'll see that everything is normal. Alright. Zergling speed now on the way for JimRising, just mining out of one of his gases. And Jim, it's important to note, he has that cool default drone skin. The classic Starcraft drone. Meanwhile, SuperNova does not. So I think we can say he's at a distinct advantage. Or is that the classic SCV one? Is that? I think that's the classic SCV if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that is. Okay, so these guys are on equal footing. Pardon me. But CC getting up. Reaper for SuperNova. Poking out on the map for now. Jim going to be working away on that. Jim's just going to be going for his third base. Yeah, if you guys who are, if you guys all tuning in from JimRising's stream really want to help out this event. Okay, maybe that one isn't the classic SCV. But yeah, if you guys really want to help out this event, type that exclamation mark Matcherino. And then you can basically just go use the code GAMES4 and add to the prize pool for free, which would be really awesome for you guys to do. There's a few ways you can also support it for free following a few Twitter links and whatnot, but enough of that. Let's just continue on into the game. So the third base is on the way for JimRising. We know he's getting up his queens. We'll see what tech he's going to go for. With the Hydras being nerfed, that may change how Zergs are going to play a little bit. Overlord's coming on in. Meanwhile, SuperNova looks like he's just producing Hellions, and he's actually going into Concussive Shell Marauder, so it's going to be the Hellbat Concussive Shell Marauder push, and JimRising's going for a Roach Warren. All right. Baneling Nest on the way here for JimRising. He actually canceled his Roach Warren. And after seeing that, and oh, look at this, SuperNova. Look at this, the mind games. Changing from the standard Concussive Shell Marauder push actually floats over his extra factory and is going to be going for straight up into these Cyclones. Going to be going for the increased lock-on there. Now, the new Cyclone, SuperNova did say that he hates it and that it's bad. I believe we're pretty close to his exact words, but JimRising, going for Banelings, going for Lings, a good way to deal with this. Roaches, vulnerable to Cyclones. Zerglings certainly are not. All right, and so we'll see. Jim's just happily droning up. He was a little bit worried about this. Starting a spine crawler at his at the front of his base is something awesome to see. I'm looking at the viewer location now, guys, and there's a lot of you guys from the Americas, which is awesome to see. From the Americas, a lot of you Mexican fans coming in. Just everyone watching from all over the world is really awesome to see, but SuperNova now going to have that mag field accelerator, but how helpful is it going to be versus Zerglings? He's going into full-on mech behind this 3rd CC mech on the way. But what are these Hellions and what are these Cyclones going to be able to get done now? The Hellions are going to be very good versus the Zerglings, but the Cyclone's not going to help out at all, but it may just be mass Hellion. The Cyclone's going to get the lock on for SuperNova, begin working away on these Queens, and now there's a ton of Hellbats, but JimRising, he's got a ton of Banelings right now. They're going to roll forward, and they're going to get pretty decent connections there on a lot of the Hellions. The Cyclones are also much weaker than they used to be, keep in mind. The Spore Crawl, or the Spine Crawler, are going to be getting set up. Every bit of damage helps here for Jim, and suddenly SuperNova's army is thinning out a little bit. Queens are going to be engaging this, but he's trying to micro back these Cyclones. Of course, they're going to be able to lock onto these Queens and try and get on out of here as they fire away, but Lings are going to be able to chase after this. The Cyclones are no good versus the Zerglings. JimRising looks to be shutting down this first attack. He's floating a bit of money while this is going on, but once he gets unsupply blocked, he'll be able to make a fair few units. He's got a good bit of larva. Then he's also gotten up his lair, so he can go into some other tech. He's getting up a Roach War and speed Roaches to be safe. Roaches in low numbers are not good versus the new Cyclones, to my knowledge. In mass numbers, I believe they're all right. Jim is going for a double Roach Warren, so that's a bit of a mistake there, but he is also going to be able to get up his 4th base. He managed to hold off SuperNova, which is very awesome to see. All right, 3rd base is on the way up. SuperNova getting up more and more factories while this is going on, so he is going to be playing this full-on mech style. How many Cyclones is he going to make, or will he go into tanks or something like that? He scans Jim, sees the Roach Warrens, plural, and Jim's actually using both. He's going for Tunneling Claws, and then he's going for speed, so you're going to want very quick Tunneling Claws. Getting Burrow. I don't believe the Burrow change will affect how fast Roaches burrow, to my knowledge, unless I'm mistaken, but Roaches, they will also now heal slower than before. Blizzard maybe said, okay, it's a little bit tough how fast those Roaches burrow, or how fast they heal while burrowed. But Blizzard making a few adjustments here and there. So a lot of things being tweaked when you really look at it. Now Hydras are on the way for Jim, however, Hydras have been nerfed, so they're not going to be as effective. They still kept all their health, but Blizzard decided to change their rate of fire. And look at those Roaches burrow. Look how fast they do that. I'm not 100% sure if that changed, but look at that. He just burrows. JimRising just having a bit of fun in this show match. Alrighty, +2, +1 on the way here for SuperNova. So he is going to be planning the late game. He's getting up a 4th base, so he's not going for any Cyclone timing or anything like that. But he is still making Cyclones consistently. So how well they'll do is a very interesting question. Barracks now floating out the flagship of mech. JimRising, he's very scared of... Look at all these spines. Okay, there's maybe a few too many spines in his mineral line, as he's just kind of completely blocking mining at some of these patches. So a few too many spines there. Maybe reposition those a little bit. 5th base on the way for JimRising. Meanwhile, just so many spines on the way. Very scared of these Hellions attack, which is a very mature decision, I believe. As Hellions, I mean, mech straight up, it's pretty decent, but the current mech really thrives on chaos, like killing off a lot of workers and things like that. 2-2 on the way here for JimRising. So going to be getting up a lot of upgrades. Now his Hydras won't be as good. I think a big swarm of Lings would certainly help him out in this situation. Maybe some Banelings, because Banelings, if they connect with Cyclones, are very good. But here we see SuperNova. He's coming on in right now with this very big army, but there's a lot of Hydras, Roaches, even a couple of Banelings in there, but the Cyclones are getting their lock on. And we'll see. I mean, here comes in all these Cyclones. They're engaging into these Hydralisks right now. The Hydra buffer, the Roaches are going away, but all the Hellbats have died, and now SuperNova, he has to kite away. These Cyclones, they can't pause for even a second. SuperNova going to lift up some of the Cyclones to save them, but JimRising clearing out that army of SuperNova. SuperNova experimenting a little bit with these Cyclones, and it seems to not be working. He's got a lot more Hellbats, got a lot more Cyclones, and pursuing these Cyclones will be able to be good. If units have to retreat from them just because of the way they lock on, but so far JimRising seems to be taking the better end of the stick. These Hydras, while they were nerfed, they got the job done. JimRising just had enough bulk there. 3 Vipers on the way will help out a great deal. Blinding Clouds, I'm not too sure. Blinding Clouds, I imagine, wouldn't be too effective versus the Cyclones, but they can always abduct. And JimRising, he's getting up 5, so it looks like he is probably planning just to get some energy on those and then go for a big attack. All right. Meanwhile, look at this. JimRising, I did not catch wind of this. He's planning a big drop. Lots of Hydras, lots of Roaches going to be going into the main base of SuperNova. A Liberator's flying by, but that should let JimRising know that he needs to adjust course. SuperNova, he caught the tail end of this with his Liberator, but was he paying attention? That's the big question. His main base, he's throwing up a lot of turrets. He's pulling his Cyclones into the main base, so he did spot this. And now the question is, how much will JimRising commit? A CC on the way. Not in a very good spot, but here comes JimRising. I mean, if these Cyclones can get a lock-on onto these Overlords, they will be shut down, and JimRising will not be able to retreat. So he's going to be very committed right now. These Cyclones are going to get a lock-on onto a few lock-ons going down. So one of those Overlords just goes down like it's nothing. I mean, they die so quickly. These Cyclones dealing so much damage. Those Overlords, yeah, they just died so quickly there. Now, meanwhile, Hellbats attacking the base down to the south. SuperNova working away on this. It looks like most of these Hellbats will be forfeit. Gonna settle for trading with some of the Banelings there. JimRising pulls the Banelings back, but yeah, these Hellbats not getting too much done there. Tanks on the way for SuperNova, so he's going to be playing a more classic mech style, getting out lots of tanks, and we may even see battle cruisers. The new battle cruisers would be awesome to see. But that's a big question. SuperNova is a ways away from those. He's just getting maxed out now on his lower ground army. But he's going to be moving out once again with all these Cyclones, with these Hellions. But JimRising, he's planning on not giving SuperNova time. Abducts a few tanks, abducts a few Liberators. However, this isn't JimRising's entire army, as he was busy trying to drop once more, landing onto all these turrets, shutting down a fair bit of this army. But a good number of Hydras are still in the main base, but these Vipers have to run. A lot of the ground army was cleaned up. Cyclones taking care of those Banelings right now. And these Hydras, they're going to be right-clicking on this CC, going to be focusing it down. These Hydras, they're not going to be able to get too much else done, it looks like. SuperNova just going to be able to engage right on into this. These Cyclones do shut that down. SuperNova is now on 4 bases. We'll see if he starts a 5th CC again, because his 5th was killed off. But he's got to start a new one now. Here comes in JimRising. All these Hydralisks, so many Hydras right now. They may have been nerfed, but JimRising says they're still pretty good. I'm going to use them. He's going to pick off some of these depots, but he doesn't want to overcommit right now, and there's a lot of siege tanks here for SuperNova as he is transitioning, and siege tanks versus Hydra, that hasn't changed too much. Without support, these siege tanks will just die. Cyclone's going to lock on to some of these, to one of these Vipers. SuperNova keeping them alive, but there's still so much Terran right now. The tank's getting blinding clouded, but there's still too much Zerg. The Vipers have to get on out of there. A lot of the Hydras traded out there versus the tanks. And SuperNova with this scary 3-2 mech army moving across the map, and Jim's got to have something to deal with this. But JimRising, look at this, he's planning a big Muta switch. How are Mutas versus the new Cyclones? It doesn't really matter because there's not too many of these new Cyclones. JimRising trying to force a siege up by himself some time. He's got the Vipers still, he's got a good chunk of units, and if you wonder where JimRising was spending all of his money, it wasn't to these Mutas. They've already got +1, so they're going to be able to catch this army of SuperNova off guard. Mutas are going to start coming on in right now. The Zerg ground force coming on in too. SuperNova going to try and kite back versus these with the Cyclones, but Thors and Vikings on the way. However, these tanks, they're all going to be forfeit. There's a decent number of Vikings right now, but not enough to deal with all these Mutas, which are now giving heavy pursuit to this army. I mean, these are only +1 Mutas versus +2 ship weapons, or +2 plating mechs, so This mech is pretty strong versus the mutas. It takes them a while to focus down some of these tanks, but a lot of tanks are going down right now. JimRising getting some nice pickoffs. This muta switch, not straight out killing SuperNova, but shutting down that attack, buying JimRising a lot of time right now. Vipers are also out, so we'll see. I mean, with the Vipers, JimRising may just pursue further, but there's all the Thors. Blinding Clouds goes down to cover his retreat. Thors get still pretty good versus mutas here, catching another tank. But JimRising, he bought himself time. He can now go into a lot more Hydralisk. He's got all those Vipers still alive. All right, man, this series is really delivering. JimRising planning on taking up a 6th base, or I guess a 7th, which is very important for him. And also getting out a few Corruptor while this is going on. More Vipers, more Hydras. I mean, Hydra Viper, pretty good versus a lot of mech compositions. All right, now SuperNova going for a big Hellion run by Hydra's popping out, but they're in trouble right now. There's not enough of them to deal with these Hellions, which are getting right on top of these. There's enough Hydras now that they should be able to deal with these Hellions. So this base will be saved. SuperNova does lose all these Hellions, which, I mean, this was a ton of Hellions, right? Like a fair investment there that's now going down, but JimRising taking a bit of damage there, having to react to that, but he's now just throwing up a lot more drones. He's just transitioning happily, getting +2. He has a greater Spire, so he's going to be able to go into Broodlords. Meanwhile, SuperNova making a lot of Vikings, getting ship weapons. He's got the Thors, and Thors are a lot better versus Broodlords now. Alrighty, so these Thors, they're going to have 10 range in their Javelin missile launchers, which is going to make them a lot better. Is it with the Javelin missile launchers? Yeah. When they've swapped mode, we'll be able to fully see, but they now have 10 range on that anti-air. Thank you for the subscription, by the way, Master Rovi. I really appreciate that. Those mutas, a lot of them actually just got focused down. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Thors were given +1 range on their high-impact payload target mode. Don't quote me on that. I know things have been suggested and then they haven't actually been implemented or things like that, but I believe that was floated at one point, and I believe that is in the current patch, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe I am mistaken. But either way, here are those Thors, and let's see. Yeah, they do have 10 range on that Punisher cannon. The random attack delay was also removed. Alrighty, here comes in those Vikings right now. SuperNova's pushing in right now just with all these Thors. Their armor is weaker, so they will die quicker. His Broodlords are engaging this right now. Alright, there's so many Broodlords for JimRising right now. He's just going to be transfusing these for days, and he's doing a good job at that. The Thor count is starting to thin out right now. I mean, I have to zoom out to see all this. Just look at all these Broodlords. It looks like JimRising is going to have enough to hold on. SuperNova trying to make this push work. There's just 1 or 2 Corruptors out, going to be able to clean out all of this. Siege tanks are being pushed back. Alright, so SuperNova, there's not much else left for him, so he took a lot of damage there. JimRising staying alive, pushing back SuperNova once more. Now, SuperNova, though, he has secured up to a 6th base, though. So the fact that SuperNova is getting up to 6th base is pretty huge. He's also planning a tank run by right now, which I mean is pretty decent. The range has always been 10. My mistake on that. But here comes in these tanks. We'll see what else they're able to get done. There's all these spines, so they will be shut down. Alrighty. A lot more Corruptors on the way. JimRising, I mean, he's kept his economy alive. He's on 85 drones, but the way this game is going right now, I mean, he's lost a lot more resources than SuperNova. Look at that, he's lost 6,000 more, and I mean, that's not a small number. And so if this game does go late, that could come back to bite JimRising, but there's still 1 or 2 more bases to secure, so he doesn't have to worry about running out of resources right away, but he probably will want to be looking for one really decisive fight versus SuperNova, but SuperNova may be bringing the fight to him with all these Thors, with all these Vikings. All right, Broodlord's now moving across the map for JimRising. He's got these Hydras and everything, so we'll see. I mean, these Thors, they were changed versus these Broodlords, but JimRising, he's making a few more Broodlords, so he's up to 11 now. SuperNova, meanwhile, on 9 Thors, 7 Vikings, so that's really the main punch in his army, the main kick to it. SuperNova sending some Hellions for a run by, but Jim has been very consistent with placing up spines at his bases to make sure he doesn't take too much damage to those. And now we may just see this one big fight. Both these players are maxed out, but JimRising has the slightly larger bank. Alright, Broodlord's coming on in right now. We'll see if these Thors clump up or if they're able to get the shots off that they want. The Vipers are going to be very critical for throwing down Blinding Clouds. Maybe a Parasitic Bomb on the Vikings if they can manage it, but these Vipers, some of them are being targeted down, so there's not too many spells left there. However, these Hydras adding a lot of DPS into this. No Parasitic Bomb lands on these Vikings, and there's actually nothing in the air to challenge them. So these Hydras, they can try and focus them down, but JimRising's army is being cleaned up right now. 22 more Hydras are on the way. But that was a pretty nasty blow by SuperNova to the army. Just JimRising taking that fight without any Corruptors or anything to help out. Made it pretty rough. Those Broodlords were all cleaned out. Now JimRising, he had a pretty good bank, but he doesn't have too much else. And SuperNova, he's going to be able to punish JimRising for this. He's going to be heading towards this base now. Some Hydras misrallied. Pretty unfortunate for JimRising. Few Corruptors coming forward, however there's nothing for them to find. There's the few Vikings, but with these Thors working away on them, that's a bit of a misstep. JimRising really trying to save this base right now, coming on in onto these tanks. Now there wasn't too many tanks for SuperNova, so these Hydras are doing their best, but no, SuperNova takes the first game. GG. Apparently my mic was muted. I apologize for the crash there. I apologize for the mic muted. OBS crashed and then it came back on the wrong profile. And apparently that profile had my mic muted, so. Good thing I noticed that at least. All right. Marine working away on this Overlord for JimRising. SuperNova, it looks like he's planning on maybe going for a battle cruiser this game. Overlord does come on in, and it will see the fusion core though, so SuperNova caught with his hand in the cookie jar. Viking pops out first, but I imagine this has to be a battle cruiser, right, for SuperNova? I mean, it could always be a Liberator range. But looks like it's going to be for that BC. New BC on the way. attack while moving, a very powerful harass tool. Yeah, Trafalgar Law is JimRising. Yamato Cannon on the way. So we'll see. I mean, JimRising knows that this is on the way, but how do you prepare for a battlecruiser rush? Starting the lair apparently is the answer. Starting a Spore. Spore is good at buying time versus battlecruisers, but we'll see. Yamato Cannon going to be finishing up before the battlecruiser. SuperNova following this up with a third CC. This is the most standard battlecruiser build. You just open up with some Hellions, then you tech into it. The only thing is that this was basically just a Liberator range rush, but instead you make battlecruisers. Hellions going to be diving on in towards the third base of SuperNova now. Or of JimRising from SuperNova. Now we'll see, what are they able to get done? Just going to be engaging this queen. Not actually going to be going for the drones. Roaches are out for JimRising to shoo this away. A bit of creep gets denied, but I think SuperNova is going to be focusing on this battlecruiser. Not heading... Oh, it actually blinked into the main base, pardon me. I was wondering where that should be heading across the map, but no. This battlecruiser, it's now going to run away from this queen. And the main thing is now, before when queens engage battlecruisers, they could kite back rather easily, but no, the BC can chase those queens easier now. Sporecaller going to try and reposition to deal with this. Meanwhile, another battlecruiser on the way. JimRising's got an Overseer in here, but there's actually nothing to help defend versus this BC. SuperNova just driving on over these drones right now. JimRising taking a fair bit of a beating, going to try and run on back. Another Spore coming in, but the queen's really worth in doubt. Another Spore is going to be trying to move towards the third base, but if SuperNova opts to go for that, no, these Overlords are in trouble for JimRising. This is going to hurt. He's planning a Roach counterattack, but there's so many Hellions right now. These depots could be in a bit of trouble, but we'll see. The battlecruiser is also going to come on out to help deal with this. Overlord's dying for JimRising. Very supply blocked right now, floating a lot of resources. Meanwhile, this battlecruiser can chase those Roaches down. Or shoo them away, pardon me. Yamato Cannon going down. Queen just gets destroyed. SuperNova blinks out. He's going to go repair that battlecruiser back at home somewhere. There it is. Who knows? I mean, these BCs, they could be a bit imba. We'll see. I mean, I think the main issue with battlecruisers, guys, is that they're just junk when you mass them up. And now Blizzard has tweaked them so much that they've become this sort of like unit that's very good by itself, just harassing. And no other capital cruiser was like that, but GG, JimRising taps out, unfortunately, because of that server swapping issue that seems to have come up. So I gotta make sure to disable the scene switcher. Hold on, did I swap to the wrong server? Great. I gotta go disable that scene switcher. Accidentally, apparently I didn't swap. There we are. So the next map is going to be JimRising's pick, as we are doing the loser picks format. Thanks to everyone for tuning on in. I do apologize for all the crashes, though, guys. It's just because of the scene switcher. Next map will be Cerulean Fall. We'll get both these guys into the lobby. I mean, SuperNova with the BC. The BC rush wasn't terrible before, guys. It was a legit build. But now it's extra strong. Thank you for the follow, guys. I greatly appreciate it. So having Black Shadow, Kadir. Both players are ready, so we're loading on in. JimRising, he's going to want to turn it around now because it's the best of 7. And you don't want to have to go for a reverse sweep. JimRising rocking that special picture. Okay, but here we are. It's this best of 7. This guy spawning up in the top right-hand side of the map with the 2-0 lead. It's Root SuperNova. And his opponent spawning down the bottom left-hand side of the map. It is JimRising. Playing for Team Asterion. Alright, so these guys are just talking about the server. Very nice. We'll be playing on NA from now on. Very, very manner from SuperNova. Alright, as far as the builds go, SCV just moving on out. For SuperNova Standard, Reaper Expand. Scouting SCV is moving across the map. Now it is Cerulean Falls, so a very big map. Reaper now out. Gonna be moving on out there for SuperNova. Double Queen on the way for JimRising, so he went for a very standard opening. Both these guys did. Reaper's gonna get on in here. We'll see if SuperNova is able to pick off a drone like last time. Alright, Reaper sharking around. No third base on the way for JimRising just yet. I imagine he'll want to be moving out to take that relatively soon. Starting a double Overlord, though. Maybe that means he's going to want to try and go for a Ling Flood or something like that. That's a little bit suspicious, a double Overlord on 2 bases. But could just be planning ahead, we'll see. Lots of drones now on the way. Clearly a non-Zerg player should not talk about Zerg Overlord timings. JimRising know what he's doing, just droning up happily. Gonna eventually want to take his third base. Queen's not necessarily able to shoo this Reaper off, though. And they're actually just moving on out. There's that Reaper, but there's the third base now starting at the opposite location. SuperNova does scout that. Meanwhile, the planned build for SuperNova looks like it will be either a Hellbat Marine push, and the fact that it's an army will means that it's likely going to be that a few Marines, a few Hellbats going to be pushing on the front door of JimRising, and we'll see if JimRising is going to be ready for this. The Overlord's going to be coming on in for him. And he sees the reactor. So he knows that it's going to be Hellions on the way, but he doesn't go any further to see the starport, which is a bit concerning. This one Overlord has caught the Hellions moving out, so JimRising. We'll see if he starts some Roaches. He started some Lings in order to defend from this. And the Liberator follow-up could also be a little bit nasty here, but 7 roaches on the way, going to help out greatly versus this Hellbat Marine attack, but whether it's going to hit too hard too soon, we'll see. I mean, roaches on the way. Is SuperNova going to be able to buy time? These queens are just going to have to try and do that. Maybe try focusing down the medivac would be good for JimRising. Going to want to transfuse that queen if he can. He's got the energy, but he's got to come down to save this base if he's going to do so. Now or never, I think. I mean, it's starting to take a lot of damage. Ling's just got to bait time. Got to buy time, pardon me. Medivac gets focused down, which is very nice. Meanwhile, these roaches are now out. So JimRising should be able to push this attack back of SuperNova. Hellbats can try and waddle back, but roaches will be able to pursue. Good grenade from SuperNova. Actually going to buy time for those units to escape. But we'll see. JimRising, he's now getting up 12 drones. He's happily defended that, so he's now macroing up. +1 on the way for SuperNova, just getting up a lot of Hellions. That's really it for now. A lot of Hellions. Getting up a Banshee will help shoo away these roaches, but these roaches can trade with these Hellbats pretty decently. Gonna be able to snipe off 1 or 2 of them. So a good micro from JimRising there. Just there's no range on these Hellbats, so they can't really punish this. Even a Ravager being morphed, showing some confidence from JimRising. This isn't an all-in attack or anything, but he is taking some nice trades here. Really reducing the Hellbat count. The Banshee will signify the end of this push, but still just going to try and get anything that he can. Roaches can't fit through that hole in the depot, though. Just going to try and settle for focusing down this depot, and he may just get that. Very nicely done for JimRising. Every bit of value matters in Starcraft 2. Meanwhile, JimRising just on 51 drones going to be getting up more. Producing a few roaches. He knows there's Banshees out on the map, so he's got to be ready for that. An extra supply depot goes down, so yeah, JimRising, nice pick off there as well. SuperNova replacing those depots. Has his +2 on the way. He did get the very quick +1. Alright. Third base on the way for SuperNova, but that's fairly delayed. Meanwhile, JimRising is getting up towards his 4th base. The Banshees are moving out for SuperNova. They could find this 4th base, and I mean, there is a lair done. But there's a chance they could maybe deny or cancel this 4th base. That would be huge for SuperNova. The Banshees are coming on in. He's probably not going to find too many drones because of the spores. So he may just settle for trying to take off this base. We are going to need to see an Overseer here for SuperNova. Or for JimRising, pardon me, because... Or there... Actually, never mind. There was no cloak, pardon me. I didn't catch that. SuperNova elected not to go for the cloak to save that money. But meanwhile, JimRising with a strong counterattack coming on in. Just focusing down a lot of SCVs right now. Wonderfully done, getting a lot of damage. These SCVs trying to go back to mining, but these roaches, even if they trade, this is going to be pretty good for JimRising. He can focus on a few SCVs as well. So with SuperNova losing 9 SCVs so far this game. And JimRising, he sees the double Thor, so he knows he's got to be ready for this drop, just producing a nice swell of roaches. He's already got a fair few out, so looking pretty good this game, it seems. Scouting Roach gets shut down by the triple Banshee of SuperNova. 3 Banshees is quite a few, but I guess if you're scared of a Roach attack, gonna help out a great deal. Now this 3rd base makes me a little nervous with how weak it is to things like Banshees or Thor drops, and here they come. The Banshee's gonna come on in. They're actually gonna try and focus this down. Queens are gonna come on in, try and shoo this away. There's 3 Queens, a few more coming forward. We'll shut this down. That 1 Banshee does get out of there. Meanwhile, JimRising planning another attack at the 3rd base. There's not many tanks for SuperNova. In fact, there's no tanks out. There's 1 that's just getting set up. A few more are on the way, but these roaches could be real scary, and they do see those Hellions. Now, that 1 roach that fired at that Hellion did alert SuperNova to this attack, but JimRising with 3 Banshees here, I'm not sure he'll be able to break into this. Maybe he can try, but actually just waiting for that tunneling clause, and then he's going to get on into all the bases, and if we actually look at this, SuperNova isn't really prepared for something like tunneling clawed roaches in all of his bases. Yeah, he's not, and now here's these roaches, they're sharking on in. Oh my god, this is so many roaches going to be in the bases of SuperNova. Some at the natural, some at the main base, and these SCVs are just going to start dropping like flies. Currently we're at 11 dead so far, but that number is going to get a lot higher this game. SuperNova actually just taps out. JimRising with the checkmate. GG, well played. I mean, yeah, there's nothing else to tell, so yeah, that's honestly my mistake. But as we load on into this game, we're having a remake. Spawning up in the top right-hand side of the map, it is SuperNova. And his opponent spawning down the bottom left-hand side of the map. Hopefully not too tilted by that mistake. It's JimRising. I guess SuperNova could have noticed if he could have made cyclones with his factory, but that's just one of those things. So I mean, it's not like the tweaks are too major in this, so there's not so much you'll notice. But yeah, that is a bit unfortunate because, like, yeah, that's just real unfortunate, guys, and I really do apologize to the players about that. That's a little bit embarrassing. Thanks to everyone who's been using the Matcherino codes, though, by the way. It does help out the, adds a few extra bucks for the players. I'm just checking here. The time between creep growth was changed, but that's also something that's so minimal. Yeah, exactly. It's just one of those things. It's a bit unfortunate, right? Like, that no one noticed before that. And SuperNova committing to battlecruisers. To get the patch notes, you can type !balance in chat. I pull them up periodically during this cast, but yeah, that's a bit funny. But it's also a bit unfortunate, and I'm gonna feel really bad depending on how this match goes. And I do feel bad for SuperNova, the fact that he's gone for this build and then, of course, the battlecruisers aren't shooting while moving. I was wondering if, I mean, we maybe could have noticed a bit sooner, but all right, we're getting on into this game. It's a bit more normal. Well, a bit more balancy. Reaper coming on in here. SuperNova just macroing up at this point, going into a third CC very early on. I'm paranoid that we're not on it now, though. I'm pretty sure. Another way that you can tell is that we don't have WCS GameHeart installed. That'll tell you when multiple units die or when multiple drones die. So if SuperNova goes for a Hellion run by or something, that'll be our confirmation. Because just the habit, whenever as an observer or an admin making the games, the habit is just to type WCS and then click on GameHeart. So that was the mistake that happened in that last game. Roach Warren is on the way for JimRising. So gonna have that out, just maybe a little bit scared that some aggression could be coming his way, but did he not scout the third base? He did scout the third base, so there's a chance he wants to use this for being offensive. I mean, he doesn't have a lair or anything though, so slow Roach Ravager attack maybe he could go for. I mean, otherwise I feel as if maybe you could cut the Roach Warren because you've seen your opponent on 3 bases, but it's just one of those things. Alright, what's SuperNova gonna go for? Is he gonna go for the Cyclones once again? And it is a Cyclone. Alright. And he's just building one, not off his reactor, so I think we can assume we're in the right mod. And there's that upgrade, Mag Field Accelerator, so we are definitely on the balance test mod this time. Hellion's moving across the map for SuperNova, gonna try and find something. Queen's a little bit out of position this time. And I mean, looks like these Hellion's gonna dive on in. A Fueling's in position, but the Queen's moved right off where they needed to be. Queens are going to be engaging onto these Hellions. Some of them getting bruised up, but there's not too much else to deal with this. A Roach popping out, going to try and help. Every Hellion that goes down is going to help tremendously. JimRising panicking a little bit, splitting his drones, doing a pretty good job, but these slow Roaches now pursuing after this. And how many drones did we see go down there? 8 in total have died this game. And that's a little bit concerning for JimRising. That's a fairly high number. Now, he is going to be teching up, just droning up. Once again, you just got to sort of sometimes just power through that loss. Meanwhile, SuperNova, he is going into these Cyclones, just making them one at a time off that tech lab. JimRising moving in with his Lings. That's a little bit of a mistake there, as those just sort of get picked right off. Overlord dives on in here. Sees the upgrade on the tech lab. Another change that could be seen at the tech lab is actually that Woodamines, once again, they require an Overseer if you have Drilling Claws, which is another cool change. But SuperNova just going for double armory. He's on his 3 bases. I imagine we'll see a 4th start for JimRising at some point. Now, he did lose drones, so that may be delayed a little bit compared to the usual. All right, now SuperNova is just really powering up. A lot of Hellions, a lot of Cyclones while this is going on. Double Cyclone production. Cyclones only take 32 seconds to build. It's not super quick, but it's not super slow either, so. SuperNova is starting to build up that Cyclone count, and he's got that mag field accelerator, so they deal a fair bit of damage. Queen's setting up creep, gonna help buy time versus this move out. Good number of Roaches are out for JimRising. Without speed, I feel as if engaging the Cyclones will be very tough, and they get their lock off on. So that's pretty much 3 guaranteed dead Roaches. JimRising, he's got to be making something that'll help him out. If he picks off the Hellions, he can make a ton of Lings, but there's some more lock on. Breaks that lock on, which is very important for him, but SuperNova just locking on, gonna be retreating now. Yeah, apparently the countdown timer had a few bugs, but the fact that when this goes live, I mean, that was like probably something that a lot of people were asking for, right? Like everyone wants that in the Starcraft, so that you're fully loaded in properly. So that, so yeah, having that removed is a little bit unfortunate. And I really hope Blizzard re-adds the countdown right away. Reaper actually denying a creep tumor there, being a bit of a pain. Meanwhile, SuperNova is just getting up his 3rd base. JimRising macroing up though, going for tunneled Roaches once again. So gonna have that as an option. I mean, Roaches, they don't seem to be too terrible versus just this Cyclone Hellbat composition, because I mean, Hellbat's not very good versus Roaches. The Cyclones put out damage, yeah, but what else? Roach is actually just diving right on top of this. This may be a bit ambitious for JimRising. He's definitely going to be losing a few here, as those Cyclones make quick work of them. Those Cyclones deal so much damage. Just a few shots and then they're done. All right. More Roaches on the way for JimRising. Got to be continuously producing something. Just electing on these for defense. And I mean, these players, they're not aware of how these units are going to fully interact. I mean, SuperNova going for the lock-on. Scan helps him have vision of everything. JimRising was working away on these rocks. He's also got his 1-1 on the way. SuperNova does have his own 1-1 done, but I feel as if +1 definitely helps out tanks more than it will these Cyclones. I mean, their damage was, what, base 18, but now they've got the +2. So, yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting learning all the timings for the new Cyclone, but JimRising, he's got something on his mind of his own. These Roaches moving across the map. JimRising just going right underneath that. A missile turret started for SuperNova. JimRising, though, that turret, it's going to be done soon. And that's really going to... Cat'll be out of the bag once that turret's done, because these Roaches are in vision of that, I believe. Now JimRising planning on attacking once again, but look at that, a scan going down, these Roaches all getting caught. I mean, now an attack going off at the 3rd base, but JimRising lost a lot of Roaches there as from that attack. Roaches once again running away on the other front. I'm not sure JimRising knows what he needs to make versus this composition. Roaches, they heal slower as well versus that. Has to retreat into the scan, but he's lost a fair few Roaches this game. There's a missile turret up. So he really missed his window there. He's going to settle for maybe picking off the missile turret and getting out. Scan going down going to help shut this down. Roaches are burning a lot of scans of SuperNova. But still, that's a little bit JimRising, he's lost 43 roaches this game, guys. And he's honestly just going into that. More roaches. JimRising, the Roach King. Not going into more bases or anything. Roach is going to be engaging at this third base. Burrowed managed to get on in. Looks like the scan will clean all of them up, though. 2-2 now on the way. Double Liberator moving out for SuperNova. Queens are going to have to deal with that. Looks like JimRising did spot it just based on its queen positioning, or maybe just being very preemptive. Queens will shoo that away. Very nice for JimRising, not having to worry about that. All these roaches are burrowed once again. But there's a new turret, Jim. You can't do this. He's going on in, but he quickly has to go on out. Unburrows the roach, is going to trade with a cyclone or two, but so many roaches have died this game. 61 have died. A scan, these cyclones going to be picking off more, and JimRising, he's just making more roaches. Yeah, there's going to be the assimilator change. Assimilators will now be more lined up with the rest of the refineries and gas extraction buildings. But SuperNova is now moving out with a pretty scary push. And how's JimRising going to deal with this? I mean, in a straight-up fight, if SuperNova doesn't micro, look at this. Just these cyclones just slaughter these roaches. JimRising is going into some swarm host, but I feel as if he needed like a muta transition, but he just taps out. GG. SuperNova moves across the map. All right, we'll get on into the... Yeah. Bit unfortunate for JimRising, just that whole balance thing. With not having the mod on that other game, which is sort of unfortunate for JimRising. Next map's going to be Dreamcatcher. Alrighty. Thank you for the follow, SC2 Gamer. A few other follows coming in. I appreciate them all. Alrighty. So we're loading on into the next game. Thanks to everyone for tuning on in. Hope you guys are enjoying the content. But this guy spawning down the bottom right-hand side of the map with the 3-1 lead. It's Root SuperNova. And his opponent spawning up in the top left-hand side of the map. It is JimRising playing for Predator Esports. Also, we'll have a bit of announcement at the end of this broadcast anyway. It's going to be for the next show match. It's going to be something really unique. that I thought would be a cool match for us to have. JimRising opening up with an early pool, which is worth noting this game. Going for a 13 pool. All right. So we'll see how that opening's going to happen. SuperNova has SCV scouted some of his games, but hasn't necessarily always. So he could be caught off guard by something like this. But then again, Terrans are not caught off guard by this kind of build as much as they used to be. JimRising is going into gas, just going into his standard follow-up. Overlord moving across the map for JimRising. That's no surprise, though, in a TVZ, right? But as far as the build goes, now those Lings are on their way out. Already going to be 6 of them out. SuperNova, meanwhile, just going for a Reaper, and he is rallying this Reaper right across the map, so JimRising could actually catch SuperNova off guard with this opening. Alright, so yeah, it looks like these Lings will be moving across the map. They're going to catch him off guard. SuperNova is following it up with a Marine, though, so going for that sort of standard Terran safety follow-up. The 6 Lings will be getting into the natural. We'll be able to at least delay it a little bit. Force an SCV pull. SuperNova's Reaper is going to come on in at the wrong second. Two more Lings popped out for JimRising. That's a bit interesting. But now these Lings are going to actually just start right-clicking on this. SCVs are forced to be pulled. JimRising, he's going to have to try and take the fight to these SCVs. Going to just pull them off the line. This is a lot of lost binding time for SuperNova. Reaper's coming on back, but oh, JimRising almost getting this around, but not quite. And now what are these Lings going to do? So JimRising, I mean, that build just, with Terrans always following it up with the Marine, it's just not the best build anymore. They've figured out how to deal with it in the meta. And so SuperNova will be getting up his CC, just a little bit delayed, but JimRising, his own hatchery was delayed a fair bit. His worker count, his droning up is going to be slower. Now he kept the Lings alive, which is very nice for him. And he's got his Ling speed now, so maybe he can try and get something done later on. And oh, this is actually, I'm going to be parked as Lings there. That would be cute. But he's going to dive on into the natural. However, there's going to be Hellions and the Reaper still there. So a little bit mistimed for Jim. He's going to have to run right on out of there. Fusion Core on the way for SuperNova, so going to be going for those battle cruisers once more. Or most likely going to be going for those battle cruisers. BC Rush, guys. It could be a legitimate build. So that Viking's going to be on the way out. Now, JimRising, with the Viking being out, he's probably going to assume it's going to be the same build, if I had to guess. It's sort of going to be in the back of your mind, those other games. Yamato Cannon now on the way for SuperNova. And now we'll see, how's Jim going to be able to deal with this? And Overlord is getting on in here. It's going to see... SuperNova, he's starting the fake cloak, gonna try and scare JimRising, but is this Overlord gonna make it to the back to spot the fusion core? It could actually be fairly close. Reaper's diving on in, but this Overlord, it's on a beeline. It's possibly gonna make it. The Viking comes on in, but oh, he does see the fusion core. So JimRising should know that this is gonna be a battle cruiser on the way. The cloak has been cancelled, of course. Battle cruiser's on the way now. JimRising, though, he's just making a lot of roaches. A lot of roaches, a lot of Lings. Maybe planning on counterattacking and trying to kill his opponent here. Because he doesn't have that high of a queen count. He's on 5. But I mean, they're not all consolidated. So this BC that now just blinked into his base could cause a lot of trouble. Queens are going to try and run an instant Yamato cannon going down on one of them. More queens coming on in here. Over these BCs. Now they can definitely shoot while moving. SuperNova, oh my gosh, even dropping the mule. The BM just gonna repair the battle cruiser. A Spore Crawler comes on up, but JimRising doesn't have much else to deal with this. He's making queens. The Spore Crawler burrows. The mule's actually repairing a lot. And I mean, JimRising, he's in a lot of trouble right now. SuperNova just gonna out-repair here. Meanwhile, JimRising, though, he is planning a counterattack, but there's so many Hellions in a fantastic concave. They're actually doing good damage to these roaches. Now, these lings can actually get on in here as these roaches are spilling into the natural, so there may be some good counter damage here for JimRising. SCVs are being pulled off the line right now. SuperNova doesn't have too much else out. And now roaches getting some good counter damage done. A queen and a Spore Crawler are going to come on in. Roaches are going to clean up that mule, so that battle cruiser will be sent back, and SuperNova is not mining it as natural for now. He's taken a fair bit of damage, nothing too significant. Both these guys are still in this game. JimRising's counterattack will be shut down, but he's picking off some depots. Getting really anything that he can is needed. Those lings are going to want to get on out of there. And now JimRising, he's going into a Spire behind this. And the question is, what else are you going to make as JimRising, because this other battle cruiser just teleported on in. JimRising, good cancel, immediately starts a Hydra Den after that Spire was Yamato Cannon, realizing that it would have died there, so saving that's very good, but this battle cruiser is still getting some good damage done. Queen going to be working away on this battle cruiser. I mean, just these queens, they can try and retreat to the Spore, but SuperNova is still just flying around madly, trying to get as much damage done as he can. These Spore Crawlers. There's a few more queens coming up to try and deal with this. Gonna be able to shoo away this battle cruiser. I mean, it teleported in. Okay. This one queen by itself. Can JimRising transfuse it? A mule's actually going to drop. He does transfuse it from the low ground to keep it alive, but this mule's going to be able to begin repairing this battle cruiser. So SuperNova legitimately using these mules in this harassment. The queens are going to come on in. They're going to be able to begin shooting away on this. And that battle cruiser, I mean, the mule can't follow it into the sky. So the battle cruiser does just teleport on out of there. Another battle cruiser teleports on in. Hydras with their reduced attack speed, not putting out as much DPS as they used to versus these things, and this battle cruiser in low numbers able to fight these Hydras. Queens are going to help take this out in this battle. This battle cruiser is actually kind of trapped. One of those queens get Yamato Cannon, the Hydra working away on it. Some more Hydras coming on down. The Spore Crawler going to reposition. He wants to kill off this pesky battle cruiser, but SuperNova is just macroing up behind this, so the BC does go down. But meanwhile, back on SuperNova's side of the map, he's actually making more battle cruisers as JimRising scrambles to deal with them. JimRising getting up a lot of Hydralisk, make some roaches, trying to remax on drones as he is definitely down in the economy. He's gotten up a 4th base. He's moving out with his Hydras, but there's simply too much Terran on the ground, so he's got to retreat. These BCs can even begin chasing, perhaps, but just going to kill off those rocks. SuperNova getting set up. JimRising is on his 4 bases. He's gotten up a decent count of Hydras, but still dealing with this scary Terran mech army is going to be tough. I mean, what do you even do as JimRising at a point like this? He's getting up those grooved spines, increasing the Hydra's attack range, but I mean, the BCs are now moving out for SuperNova once again. It's going to be 3 battle cruisers, and I mean, they can just sort of, trade and then blink on out. They're pretty strong. There's rocks getting broken down. Now here comes in these battle cruisers. So they're going to be going into the main base. There's a few spores here to try and help buy time, which is exactly what they're going to do. One Yamato cannon going down. Hydras are in position to try and shoo these away. More Hydras getting on top of those BCs. Yamato cannons going down, picking off some of them. One of the battle cruisers does go down, which is very nice for JimRising. Alright, SuperNova still with the scary mech army. However, if JimRising can max out, there's always a chance, but the mech army for SuperNova is looking pretty scary. Alright, Roach is now shooing this away. JimRising wants to maybe try and get some multi-prong attacks going on. BC's moving out for SuperNova once again. JimRising is getting up towards this 5th base, which will be the gold. SuperNova is just reaching this scary mech army, though. I think JimRising maybe needs to try and go for something like Vipers at a time like this. BC is now going to be coming on. A lot of Spore Crawlers are set up to help deal with this, but SuperNova also going for his 5th base, meaning that that it's never a good sign for the Zerg player to be equal on workers. Both of them, though, maxed out, so there is always a chance for JimRising. But SuperNova is going to be coming on in with this scary, scary mech army. A lot of Hellbats. They can be worked away on by these Hydras and Roaches as they kite back, but all these tanks are going to cause problems. Meanwhile, these battle cruisers attacking on this side of the map. Hydra's going to try and focus them down. Are they going to be able to get them? Not quite. So SuperNova just being very efficient with those units. Now JimRising. Where's the rest of his army? He's teched into some Vipers now. He's got 27 Hydras out. He was busy dealing with those battle cruisers in the main base, but his base gets cancelled, and suddenly it's a 5-base Terran to what is a 4-base Zerg, which is never a good thing for the Zerg player. JimRising maybe just going to try and commit to the attack hard right now. This planetary will be finishing up pretty soon, though. I mean, if SuperNova can catch, or if JimRising can catch SuperNova out on the map, there's always a chance. He's maxed out. He's on 4 bases. He's going to have his 2-2 on the way, but for now he is going to be down on upgrades. He's going to start breaking down these rocks. I mean, this is a huge mass of Hydralisks. And SuperNova's tank count, I mean, it's 16, so it is going to be pretty tough to break this. He's got the Vipers out, though, and Vipers, there's always a chance with them. But JimRising pushing on in is going to be so risky right now, but he's actually just going into this concave. Blinding Clouds are going to be going down on a lot of these tanks, so a good engagement for JimRising. However, eventually those Blinding Clouds are going to wear off, and there is so many tanks here for SuperNova. The Vipers are coming back in to get off more of those Blinding Clouds, which is going to help out greatly. Fantastically done. JimRising getting a good trade on a lot of these siege tanks right now. He needs to focus them down, but not going to have enough Hydras as he taps out. The attack doesn't work, and SuperNova takes the 4-1. Alright guys, thanks for watching. I know there was a hiccup or two in these matches. I know it was delayed because of the whole WCS thing running incredibly late, dare I say. But yeah, thanks everyone for tuning on in. I hope you did enjoy the matches. And yeah. But well played to both of those players. Well played to everyone. It was fun exploring the Balanced Test mod. I mean, there wasn't too much of significance, and it will be explored a lot more. But if you guys did enjoy the content, feel free to leave a follow. And make sure that if you haven't already, use !Matcherino to go out and make sure that we use up the last of those codes. It's really appreciated. But otherwise, I shall see you guys next time, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.